All right, we are live, which is great. Welcome everybody to our podcast. Oh my gosh, to our webinar on digital citizenship. This is our last webinar for this topic. We are excited to have everybody here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So this week's goal is to talk specifically about teaching digital citizenship in the classroom, and really focusing on integrating that no matter what grade, no matter what subject you teach. So just as a quick reminder, my name is Amanda Taylor. I work with Design for Learning. I've been in education since 2005. I haven't been in the classroom for a couple of years, so I made sure to bring along some classroom teachers with me today, for people at least that have been in the classroom super recent. What I do now is project management, which sounds really scary, but honestly, it's a lot of what you guys are doing in the classroom anyways. I just do it with adults instead of with children. And I also work with a big iPad integration project. And so digital citizenship is constantly part of the conversation. So, and I'm also a mom, which we have digital citizenship issues in our own house. So we get to do all of this from a bunch of different angles. And I have two guests with me today. Coincidentally, they're both named Amy. So we're gonna go with Amy, and we're gonna go with Bishop. So we're gonna let Amy introduce herself first.
Hi, I'm Amy Manor. I'm a technology integration specialist in Connecticut. I'm a certified Google trainer, and I'm also on the Fund for Teachers Connecticut Advisory Board. So if you are not familiar with the Fund for Teachers, I hope that when we are done with this, you can check that out. That's an amazing opportunity for teachers. I'm a former math teacher at the middle school level, as well as a STEM enrichment teacher. I also taught instructional technology and 3rd and 5th grade.
Awesome, thank you. And Bishop.
Hello, I'm Amy Bishop, go by Bishop. I was at the high school level for the last 14 years, and the district I work in opened a new middle school, and I was silly or brave enough, depending what your perspective is, to teach 8th grade history, but it's been going very well. And I am the SAS or department leader of that department now as well. And I had the honor at the new school of being named the first teacher of the year, not only for my work in the classroom, but outside the classroom. And I currently am in my classroom because our school is having an essay contest, so we're supporting, and I have my 5-year-old daughter with me. So if you Mom, you open the applesauce, you know you're fine, nothing's going crazy. My daughter Quinn is hanging out with us too.
Yeah, and I don't think I've had an interruption from my son on any of these webinars, but it is very, very common to see my son do cameos. Up there she is. To have my son cameo during webinars, so totally fine. I love that you taught high school first and are now teaching middle school. Middle school was really challenging for me. I was obviously much younger. This was 10 years ago. But I always wonder if I would be a better middle school teacher now that I'm older and not 25, because 25 was really hard because middle school kids can be really mean. And it took me a while to develop a thicker skin. So I'm really curious what that would look like. For those of you that are watching along with us, let us know what grade you teach and what age, what subject you teach. If you are a single subject or multi-subject, we'd love to hear that in the chat. And we are so glad that you guys have joined us today. So we're opening, so just to remind you, our topic for this series, we worked on defining digital citizenship and looked at kind of like the core foundation. Last week, we talked about student privacy and what that means legally and like in layman's terms. And this week, like I said, we're talking about teaching it in the classroom and practical application. What does that actually look like? And if you have issues that you want to hear answers for, be prepared to share those, and we'll do our best to give you our take. So digital citizenship is character education in a networked world. And unless we go through something catastrophic, we will continue to be more and more networked as time goes by. I think my brother is probably the only person I know that doesn't have an email address. It's really hard to be successful or to be moving forward in this world when you're not networked. And we know that our students are going to be part of that world. And it's going to even become more and more networked. I think when my husband was in high school, they said 20% of you will have jobs that don't even exist yet. And I would say that number is probably much higher, and it gets higher and higher every year. The role that I have now, the role that Amy has, those jobs weren't even figments in people's imaginations when we were in college, when we were just starting. And it just, so we know that it's going to continue changing. We want to make sure that students are prepared for that. So we want to hear from you. What do you want to hear about first? So I have a poll for us. I'm going to launch it. We want to know what subject would you like for us to talk about first? Incorporating digital citizenship into subject areas, how to balance screen time in the classroom, creating rules and boundaries without being punitive, creating rules and routines that are sustainable, because nothing fails worse than when you create a bunch of class rules and then you can't sustain them. And then your students are like, you have no credibility because you made all these rules and now you're not keeping them. I think that was my problem as a middle school teacher. Hacking mindset, and what is it? And how do we manage that in the classroom? And then modeling with your own tech system. So fill out the poll for us, and then we'll get started in just a second. And I think you can select more than one. I think I set it up that way. So if you want to hear about more than one, otherwise we'll start with the one that has the highest number. I'll give you guys just a few seconds. I won't play Jeopardy music in the background, I promise. My husband is outside raking mulch. That's what's going on in my household today. All right, so wait time is so hard for me, by the way. Our winner is incorporating digital citizenship into subject area. So we're going to start with that, and then we'll go through some of these other ones. So as a middle school and former high school teacher, Bishop, I'm going to let you take this one first. How do you incorporate this topic into your classroom?
Okay, so there's many ways that I do this. Oh, hi, Quinn. Can you go watch Bluey now? Oh, so number one way is patience, which we are demonstrating right now, and being ready for anything. So the first thing my main advice is whenever you're planning anything, but especially with technology, you need to have backup and a backup and a backup plan, because coming from different schools with different Wi-Fi's and different systems in place, you will have a great lesson ready to go, and then the Wi-Fi crashes, or a kid doesn't have their Chromebook or their phone or whatever that you guys are able to use, and then you're like the credibility piece comes. Well, if you can't pivot and you don't have like 3 things planned ahead of time, and I know it's a lot of work, but it's worth the time. That's the number one thing. So for instance, before COVID, we didn't even use Google Classroom. And I don't even know if we were allowed to use it. And then, COVID hit March 2020, within 2 weeks, we're all on Google Classroom. So now we continue to use that as, quarantines were happening and whatnot. So everything's in one location. But every time I do an assignment, that digital citizenship piece is you also have to have the backup. So I had a student teacher in the fall. I'm working with 2 new teachers this year. You got to also print out 10 copies of whatever the activity is you're doing, so you can still conduct your lesson, have your classroom management, have the rules and expectations, and kind of bridge that divide. Also, it's great when a kid goes miss. I've been on the Chromebook all day. My eyes are done. I need a break. And you're literally doing the same thing, but with a paper version. Another way that you did this, which I did the first time this year, and I have no connection to this documentary, is called The Social Dilemma on Netflix. It's a bit scary. It tells you all about the technology and the algorithm, which we know about, but it delves deeper into the fact, I'm like looking at my phone, just like when you're on Facebook or Instagram now, because these kids are Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok, when you're scrolling through, they actually record how many seconds you're on this picture or image, and then it sends you ads and whatnot based on those. So I had my class this year back in February watch it, and it was such a good tipping piece to talk about where kids, weren't all on board. Some were like, oh my God, I'm getting rid of my phone. And then it's a way to start a conversation. So I know everybody's subject is not history, so they might not be able to utilize that. But if you have like a flex period or a study hall, or even like a beginning of the year activity, watching a movie about technology that everybody can relate to was really like literally helped bond my classes together, because we all are addicted to our phones, but how can we harness it? And that's what we discussed. And the whole team did that. So I know like I went down the rabbit hole a little bit there, but if there's other specific things I can talk to, but really understanding that our kids are on the phone 24/7 and the Chromebook and the video games. But if you ask them to type a resume, they have no idea what to do. Or if you ask them to search their Gmail, which every kid in our district has, and they don't know how to do that. So really stepping back and assessing, which I'm going to do even more in the fall, what they know and don't know, or they don't know what to ask, and how you can assess each kid. So kind of like do they know how to spell? Do they know how to write a complete sentence? Now just adding the technology piece.
Sorry, I had to mute because my husband is air blowing our front yard now. It's good times here. We talked about that a little bit 2 weeks ago with the if you add a new tool in your classroom, for example, scissors or a sewing machine, you have to teach your students how to use it, and you can't take for granted that your kids may or may not know how to do it, especially as they get older. So you can assume that they've done this before, or they've written an essay before, but you kind of have to approach each one of those. And I think that's part of, I know it feels so cliche to say, it's part of good lesson design to have those backups and to have something that can be staggered. So if you have a kid that needs more support, you're able to provide that for them and not completely let that derail you. I want to speak really quickly to the backup. This is very hard in the beginning. But if you think about it, if you had to teach a lesson and your projector didn't work, or if you couldn't find your markers, or if you couldn't find supplies, we do this type of problem solving all the time. You just have to think of it from a different perspective. And so already having something in mind, even if it's just, okay, we're going to do this, but we're going to do it together. We're going to do it on the board. Or I'm going to project my screen and we're going to do an all call. We were in the middle of an all day training, all day, you guys. I was with these teachers all day, and the Wi-Fi in the entire region of our county went out. So I hotspotted off my phone with the presentation so we could at least start the discussion. We couldn't do any of the practice skills or anything like that, but we could at least start the conversation while we waited for the Wi-Fi to come back up. It was A+. But I think the bigger thing that we're modeling there is perseverance. And that's one of the biggest things. That's actually one of the second thing on our item is teaching moments. Every time you use technology in your classroom, it's a teaching moment, and it's an opportunity to model to your students what it means. And it doesn't have to be about passwords or about cyberbullying, just the way that we use technology, the way that we approach technology. How many of you have heard an older teacher say, oh, I'm just really old and I don't know how to do this, or this is really hard for me, or oh my gosh, I've even heard an admin say, this is so stupid, technology makes me feel so dumb, which Amy, have you ever heard anybody talk like that in your district?
Yes, and it's so powerful when I can work with teachers and they can see that they can do it. And I like to tell my teachers all the time, when I'm working with them, we are asking our children every day as teachers to go out of their comfort zones and to learn something new. And the biggest difference that I see with adult learners and and students who are learning is when it comes to the content areas, our students are afraid to fail, and our teachers are eager to learn more about their content area. But with technology, our students are willing to fail. If they don't know how to do something, they're going to figure it out with technology, and they're eager to learn, where that's where our adult learners can just pump the brakes and just get very frustrated. So I definitely do. Amanda. I see that. But having the children, using the children who are really proficient with the use of technology, particularly Google apps for Google Workspace for Education, which is what we are. We're a Google heavy district where I work, and having students become techsperts. Google techsperts, and helping one another to help build the capacity. We had a Google Gigglers after school club that were just, we would get the students together, and then we would have teachers come in and just teach them different skills, and then just have it grow like that. But there is definitely hesitancy and an uncertainty with adult learners, and I get that because it's constantly changing, as you know.
Oh my gosh, all the time. I think one of the things too that you can do as a teacher when something like that happens is you can say, instead of approaching it as I failed, you can approach it with I need help with this. I bet you guys could help me figure this out, or can you help me problem solve this? And I would even do that when I was teaching, because there were some things with my subject area that I was less, it's not that I wasn't proficient. I just don't have all of the data memorized, right? There's a lot to learn. I taught family consumer sciences, which is basically home ec, and it spanned like 13 different subject areas. So sometimes I would forget like an equation or how many, whatever. And I'd be like, you know what, you guys are gonna have to look this up for me. Like, I don't remember. Like, I know what it is, and I know it's important, but I don't remember like the exact number. I'm not a details person. And so I looked that up. We also have a beta tester. If we're going to try something new and it might fail, I always ask the students, will you guys be my beta testers today? And it might not work, but we're going to have fun trying. And if it sucks, it can't get any worse. I had a unit that I used to teach. I think everybody has this. They have the unit that just sucks. So that was the year our instructional technology person at our campus, I told her, whatever you want to try, whatever crazy thing you want to try, you can do it in my classroom when I do this particular unit, because I hate teaching it so much that it can't get any worse. So you come in, do whatever crazy thing you want to do. We did Glogster. Do you guys remember Glogster?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It was not user friendly, but you know what? The kids did it. Did they learn anything about water? I don't know, but it wasn't horrible and I didn't cry. So it was a win-win for me. One of the things that I want to show really quickly, I'm just going to do a quick peep before we go on to the next one. We actually have this right here that we're going to talk about. These are the core intersections for digital citizenship, and this is provided by Common Sense Media. But if you teach anything that falls in this category, in these categories, you can incorporate digital citizenship mindsets into your curriculum. So social studies teachers, civic learning, building one's identity and values, exploring perspective, communicating with civility, that's any class. Thinking critically, that's math. Identifying credible resources, having curiosity, identifying red flags with engaging online, developing healthy relationships with media and tech. All of these things can be affected into or can impact any class, any subject area. The biggest thing I always get is math. Amy, I always get, how do I incorporate digital citizenship into math? I was like, do you use technology in your classroom? Yes. Then you can incorporate digital citizenship into your classroom. And I think that provides a really great segue into our next question is optimizing our learning management systems, optimizing what we do to provide modeling. We talked a little bit about that already, but Amy, do you think you could expand a little bit on that for us?
I sure can. Again, our learning management system, our LMS, is Google Classroom. And from a very young, our students were one-to-one devices, and they are in their Google Classrooms at grade K. So I think one of the best resources that we can do is really that stream section in our Google Classroom. Use that as a way to model commenting, having the students, giving them one quick little question and having them answer it. And if they don't, not, just not worrying about spelling, or how are you, having them share work in there, going around, and we can post their little work that they're doing, and maybe if they're doing a little something on Google Docs or something, and sharing it in there, and having them look at their work in there and then comment on there. Sometimes they will just do a little, showing them how to write, love, sometimes LUV, or like, or things like that, and just like showing them from a very young age how positive interactions can look like in social media. And when they're older, again, using that Google Classroom stream to have them really think about, or when you're going to share your work in there, how are you going to put that work in there? Are you going to make this, just post this in there? Is this going to be edit? Is everybody, are you going to give everybody commenting rights, or editing? What do you want? Do you want all these people collaborating? And then that can get a bigger discussion into, sharing of intellectual property, which is something that, what those SISTE standards, when we're thinking of things, we want to, we have to be careful when we post things out there. And a bigger discussion is, when we are using Google Classroom to talk to the students in the beginning, showing them the settings that we have. Here are my options as a teacher. I can give you the ability to comment, or I can take this commenting, or I can just make it where only the teacher can comment. What are you thinking? Can we keep this open? What do you think? What would it look like if it was successful? What is it going to look like for us to have this, for our comments open on Google Classroom, this stream open, and just have that, as opposed to just turning it off immediately and saying nobody can comment. Yeah. And then maybe, down the line, and then just showing them all of the features. I think one of the things that the kids really truly don't understand is that digital footprint, that everything that they do, but we can do it in such a positive way as well. And just saying that yes, we're going to see what's happening, but let's really take this as an opportunity to really see some great things and make some really kind, really do some impactful community building here. And just taking children aside, if that, and just, again, making a teaching moment out of everything. If there are little glitches, and there will be, because they're kids, maybe we do have to turn that off, that stream. Maybe it can't be open all the time, but showing that, having the flexibility when you are in that classroom setting, letting those comments open, letting them post their work, letting them take a look at this. I love that. Those are my favorite lessons, is when the students are done with particularly like a Google project that they're working on, that they're so eager to share. Those are in the stream, and you can just hear the kids, they just love it. And then just the powerful connectedness of just expressing their gratitude and their excitement for the learning experience in the classroom. It's so powerful. It's just so community building. So I think that you can optimize your learning environment, because that right there, your management system rather, to really encourage that that caring classroom community that transcends the classroom, that's really building your school community. Yeah. And just teaching those kids. So I would start with Google, your learning management system. I think that's the best way to model, because a lot of these kids, unfortunately, just don't, with their parents, they may have heard things, or older siblings that have been unkind. So for us to provide that modeling with things that we truly can control and really model for the kids, I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I agree. And I think even so, if you're not using Google Classroom, if you're using Schoology, if you're using Seesaw, most of the learning management platforms, or portfolio style platforms out there, have the ability to turn off comments, to turn them on. Seesaw has a like feature, so you can always start with the likes first and then the comments. Flipgrid has video comments that you can put back again. It reminds me of, and I still have the book, you guys, in third grade, when we had a little book and everybody had a paper with their name on it, and then they passed it around and everybody had to write something nice about that person on the back of their paper. And I know that's an elementary school example, but when you think about grown adults and corporate jobs, I have to communicate and give feedback and comment on work every single day. I never work in a vacuum, and I very rarely ever work without the ability to search the internet. Very rarely. The only time I've ever been locked down with no internet access is either because the Wi-Fi is down or because I was taking my teacher credential exam. Like, when do we ever have a world where we're not able to utilize our resources to look up the answer or to find it? What we're seeing is the ability to communicate, the ability to problem solve. And I understand that there's a place and a time and there's purpose and testing and all of that fun stuff, but providing opportunities like that for your students are really great, especially that communication piece. Bishop, I have a question for you. You teach middle school.
Yes.
How do I keep my students from using poop emojis and middle finger emojis when we're doing comments?
So there's a couple ways to address that. Number one is just set the expectation and remind them they're not playing Minecraft or League of Legends, and this is not a toxic environment. We are all family, dare I say, or at least in a professional friendship mindset. And then when it does come down the pike, especially in like Google Classroom, because it is going to happen, you exit out and then you talk one-on-one with the kid. But the other thing, if you need to, depending on hi Quinn, is I also give a rubric for my digital expectations. So if a kid says, oh, I have an 88, hi Quinn.
Mom,
Yeah.
do you want to see something on the board?
In 2 minutes, okay? In 2 minutes,
Can I
okay?
show you right now?
2 minutes. I'm talking real quick, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, my lady. Sorry, she's fine. So as I was saying, so like say a kid knows he's going to get a 90, 95 or just wants to pass and they're not doing the expectations, I just show them the rubric and or the parents and or the admin, which luckily we haven't had to use this year. But I will say your goal is a B or better, or your goal is that 95 you had last semester. Well, unfortunately, you're making some decisions that's bringing you down, which is, I hate to do that grades as a carrot, but if that is where you need to go, that is a way. But I do find, which has been a breath of fresh air in the middle school level, they kind of police themselves. And I have one group, my period 3, they're really high level. And when they're not being respectful, before like one kid was flipping a water bottle the other day. I know it's not digital, but just for example, and I didn't even have to address the kid. Another kid said, dude, we don't do that in here. Like, stop, you're acting like a 5-year-old. So it was very good. And then also the last thing you could do is you can always embrace it. So for instance, I don't swear or yell very much. And I tell my students that's why if I do yell and if I say, get the boop out of the room, right, something's going down. So imagine if I came in here and started putting poop emojis and all these things on the technology, you'd be like, oh no, something's wrong, right? It's the same kind of thing as the modeling. So, and then also, as Amy was saying about the stream, on my Google stream, I don't just make it about work and academics. I also put stuff like this week is Spirit Week. So I put the photographic icon that our math teacher made up there. So it's also a place for them to go, like they need to go to find information that pertains not just to my class. So then I can also make sure they're doing their work and their stuff that way too.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think I love that example that there is a time and a place for everything. We talk about that with swearing in our house. As a family, as a married couple, we don't swear. I grew up in a swearing household where the parents were allowed to do it, the kids weren't allowed to do it. And that was really confusing because they weren't modeling that kind of behavior. And you could do that for anything, all things, right? Like your parents are cheating on their taxes and you hear them talking about it, but it's not okay for you to cheat on your math test. So, and people are like, that's not connected. It is. Students will see behavior and they will repeat behavior, right? There's always a root cause for it. So I love that. And I love that there's space for them to express themselves in that way. Well, when is it inappropriate to use a poop emoji? Because some people think poop emojis are funny. I've also seen how many emojis is too many emojis. And so the rule that I give teachers when I'm teaching is 3, no more than 3 emojis, no more than 2 exclamation points. So those are our rules when we do comments and things like that. And if you're going to give a comment, it has to be a full sentence. It has to be at least 5 words. It can't just be cool, bro. Like, what was cool about it? Like, it has to be a full sentence. And that those examples are, we're always talking about preparing kids for the real world, preparing for the grown-up world. Those are things that they're going to see, right? And they're going to be communicating on Slack. They're going to be emailing back and forth. They're going to be messaging. They're going to be networking on LinkedIn. These are all things that, grown-up professionals have to do. And the more we can model that behavior, the better off I think they'll be.
Amanda, do you mind? I'm just going to kind of take what you just said. I love that about communicating to the children, the expectation about the way they are to communicate in there. And I love that. And when I was in the classroom and we were using Google Class, we're using that stream to leave comments and everything. That was one of the things, just not one comment when you're discussing what is it that you liked. And I felt their comments were so meaty, if you will. They really had to think hard about what they were communicating and what they liked. And I felt that really translated into the writing as well, because when you're expecting in the speaking, when you the whole language arts component, so when you are having those high expectations for how the children are going to be communicating, and we tell them, this isn't Instagram, this isn't, Facebook when I was in the classroom, or, we're not writing just one word, as you said, cool, this is great. What is it that you like? What is it that is, what strikes you? What is so great about this? Think hard about that. And it just lends itself to that deeper understanding of the content, if you will, that they were seeing and they were enjoying, but also a deeper connection with the students, because they could say, wow, he really paid attention to that. He really liked that. So, but really showing the kids, this is not, we're communicating. This is this is our classroom. It's a business. This is a professional environment. So let's communicate like it is. And when you have those high expectations, those kids really do like to meet them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what Bishop said earlier about reminding them of those expectations. And how many times do we remind them? Every day, sometimes multiple times a day, because they forget, because they get distracted, because they're 12 or they're 6 or they're 8 or they're 15 or they're 18, and they just don't have that forward thinking processing. Some adults don't even have that, to be perfectly honest, but we do. And we have the ability to extend those expectations to them. So our next thing is media balance and boundaries. And this is huge, because if it was up to my son, every assignment would be on the computer, every assignment. But my daughter is more of a middle of the road kid. She wants a balance. She doesn't want everything to be on the computer, because she likes to draw. She likes to write. She likes the kinesthetic feel of like doing stuff with her hands, and she needs like actual, like I'm thinking math, like she needs models to play with. And sometimes that's hard to do just looking at a screen or just looking at a regular worksheet. So how do you find balance? So especially after like virtual learning for a year, I know not everybody did it for a whole year, but a lot, especially in California, a lot of people did it for a year. And then when they got back to the classroom, they were like, yeah, we're done. I don't want to use technology anymore. And you're like, you can't go back. Like you can balance it, right? Like I get it. You don't want to be on Zoom anymore. But you have to find balance with it, because like we said, technology is not going away. So how do you guys find balance and boundaries? How do you help your teachers or yourself, Bishop, navigate that balance and those boundaries? I'm going to let Amy go first. Unless Bishop wants to go first.
Aim, I thought you were ready. Go ahead.
I'm ready. So
go for it.
Is there's no silver bullet to this yet. We're still literally in the process of figuring this out. Because as I said, we had smart boards and the kids had one-to-one devices, but we weren't all digital. And then COVID hit, we're all digital. And now we're kind of in a, depending on the subject, depending on the teacher, kind of a mixed situation. So again, we're still figuring this out as across America. So the first thing I would like to say to the comment you had, Amanda, of you can't go back to all paper. The number one reason I would advocate for a mix is every PPT I used to go to, as a freshman teacher, I would say, your student is doing well at this, but they have time management issues. They have organization issues. They lose papers when I give them. I take them from them before they leave my room and I still can't, they lose it somehow, right? I found with Google Classroom, there's no more of those comments because one, the assignment is either submitted and not done, submitted and done, or they forget to submit it. So now on PPTs, I can say, okay, thank you, mom, dad, grandma, auntie, who was on the phone. Here's my Google Classroom code. This is everything that I can show you that your student is done or not done. And you can work on this with them. I can work on them with Flex or Study Hall. So it kind of brings everything together, which is, I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know until you realize like this is amazing. And I don't have papers like misplaced. I myself used to have file folders and like the accordion things, and I still have that, but I don't utilize it as much. And it's just become a great way for the kids, just like us, with a lot of, we pay a lot of our bills online, to keep that all together. With that said, though, it is important to have that tactileness, the discussion with each other without a screen in front of them. Literally, some days I will say, okay, let's shut our Chromebooks. How's everybody doing? Let's do a check-in and whatnot. So definitely finding that balance, which again is hard depending what subject, what grade you're at, but definitely you need to continue having them use the technology because it will be part of their job in the future, most likely. And if they don't have exposure or practice, then they're going to be behind the rest of their peers. So I hope that answers some of your questions.
No, that's perfect. I love that. Amy, do you have anything to add?
Just with immediate balance, I think that a classroom teacher, especially now, because the students are so, there's so much tech, we can't even really call it blended learning as much because I think it's more, we're higher on the tech side. But I think that we always have to start with our student learning goal, right? And I think as teachers, we have to really just take a look at the big picture and say, is technology really the best route for this lesson? Or can we possibly have an unplugged component here? And giving the children, maybe through the use of a project, a menu, a project menu, a choice board, if you will, to have them really think about how they can best communicate their learning and understanding that maybe just turning your device off and getting creative and finding different ways, as you said, Amanda, the tactile, that kinesthetic, that hands-on way, maybe understanding that, I've had too much computer. I want to do some poster creation, if you will, because I am hearing a lot of that from teachers, or the kids are they're really welcoming the opportunity to do things that are not on the computer right now. But there are some really great lessons. I keep on going back to the common sense, and I know that you have as well. You've referenced common sense. Common Sense Media has those really great lessons, and there's one in particular on media balance, and it's really great with the kids, and it really can talk to the children about having that media balance, and really, are you inside all the time? Are you on the computer all the time? When your friends are talking to you, when you're talking to your friends, or your friends looking at your computer, their phone, how does that make you feel? And I know that I have conducted those lessons with my students in the past, and it's so powerful. They are recognizing that they don't have a great media balance, that they're not outside after school a lot. So talking with them and asking those open-ended questions, and again, these lessons in common sense for the teachers who are listening. If you can take a look at that curriculum, Common Sense Media, those media balance lessons are so good, because when you can facilitate those discussions with the children are they get it. Like right now, they are the first ones to say, I've had a phone for this many years. I'm on the phone all the time, TikTok all the time. It's too much. My feelings are hurt. Sometimes my friend won't talk to me. She's always on her phone, looking at her phone, and things like that. So media balance, we really, it's just a biggie with the kids, and they are the ones right now who are truly recognizing that they really they don't have a great balance of things that are online and in the real world.
I was just looking at a math example that one of our little neighbors' kids did. It was something about pizza and fractions, and she wrote, like, she quartered her pizza and she put like all of the neighbors' names. So like my kids are in there. So like it's like our Friday nights, because as a neighborhood we all come over and have pizza on Friday nights. But how many times do we have examples in the classroom that are like some ambiguous, like how many apples or how many of this? It could be apps, it could be percentage of time on the computer. You can incorporate some of those, like there was one, it was like 2 trains are speeding next to each other, and living in Texas, my kids have never been on a train. They've never been on a subway. And so like that idea is foreign to them, but there's so many ways where we can utilize, even if it's just an example, and how we, and how we approach solving other problems, but then that leads to another conversation. I think being curious and being open to talking about those things. And if you ask students, do they think their parents are on the phone too much? They're going to say yes, which is crazy. And in my defense, my son's upstairs, in his mind, computers, while he does use them for school, computers are for fun. Like his entertainment is on the computer. He watches YouTube the way we used to watch cartoons and TV and stuff after school. And you better believe we spent hours watching TV after school, even though my mom said we couldn't. My mom will never watch this webinar, so we don't have to worry about that. She would go to Jazzercise, and my brother and I would go into the living room and we would watch TV together. And we just made sure we turned the TV off with enough time so it would cool down before she got home, because you could come home and put your hand on it to see if it was warm or not. So this whole idea of balance is nothing new. The object that we are needing to balance is the new thing. There was a picture example of, a whole bunch of people on the subway, and they're like this, right? And then there's another picture right next to it, a whole bunch of people on the subway, but they all have newspapers in front of them. So we're all intaking information, but you're reading a book, and nobody's going to get mad at me if I read my book for 37 hours a week. But if I tell you I'm on my phone for 37 hours a week, you're going to be like, oh, no, so I get it. There is balance for sure. One of the ways that I personally model this at home, I realize this isn't school, but at home, and it's something you could talk about, is we have the screen time app on our phones. And so if I'm on social media for longer than an hour and a half, I get a little warning that my time is almost up. Now I'm an adult, I can override that time whenever I want to, but it's a red flag to me that I've already been on my social media a lot today. So maybe I should go do something else. And so I think talking to kids about that. When my son comes home, he looks at me and my husband sitting here working, and he doesn't think we're playing. I just think he has a hard time. Like, I'm working. I know it doesn't look like work to you. Like, this isn't what working isn't for you on the computer, but when mommy sits in front of her computer all day, I'm working. So on the weekend, you never see us on our computers ever, because I do this all day. And that balance is important. One question that I like to ask people, I'm an avid reader. And so when I meet other people that are readers, I always ask them, like, what modality do you prefer? Do you prefer audiobooks? Do you prefer reading hardback, paperback, mass market, Kindle? Do you have an actual Kindle? Do you read on the Kindle app? Do you read on your phone? Do you have a Nook, on your iPad? And I'm amazed at how people try to gatekeep reading. Well, it's not really reading if you don't do it with a book. Like, well, it depends on what I'm doing today. I've actually been reading a book this week, and it's all audiobook, because that's what I have time for. I've been driving a lot, and I've been working in the house a lot, preparing for a family visit. And that's all I have time. I don't have time to sit and read for 3 hours, but I have time to listen to an audiobook, and that's okay. And so talking to kids, there's more than one way to do things, there's more than one way to showcase your knowledge. And I love that we have the opportunity in 2022 to do that with kids. So
Could I just add a concrete
yeah,
example?
go for it.
So I stole this from undergrad, I used it since like '07. But you create on a Google Doc now, or Microsoft Word back in the day, a tic-tac-toe box, right? So 3 by 3, I'm not a math person. And you come up with 9 activities that you would like the kids to do. So in this topic, maybe 3 or 4 that have to do with paper, and talking to someone, or have to do with technology and whatever the subject allows. And so you have your list of 9 things, and it's probably, at the end of a unit, or, at the end of a big assessment, this could be the assessment. So you then say, okay, guys, you have to pick 3 as if you were going to win tic-tac-toe. And the kids are like, oh, we got this. So they start thinking, and you have strategically placed where you want the main thing to do. So that's usually in the middle, because that's a higher percentage of them doing it. But then you also like play the game yourself. And when you place the assignments, you make sure that they are hitting different modalities, or that class's strength is presenting, say, not a middle school, but say it is, then you would make sure that they then have to work with a partner one-on-one, or they have to do an assignment individual, so that way you have different activities. So I used to teach the Middle Ages at the high school I worked at, and I would do like, you had to build something, you had to design something, and then you had to interview someone as if they were in the Middle Ages. How would life be like? And of course, this took a while. This was not a one-day assignment. And then the other tasks would be around it. And then it could be something silly now, not silly, but little, like, okay, imagine you were Alexander the Great, right? If you're doing 6th grade world history, now it won't be Facebook now, make a Snapchat conversation between him and Cleopatra, right? And again, you have to model appropriately, but doing stuff like that. So that way you're still driving their student choice, but you're giving them student choice. So that way the technology kid isn't just picking the 3 tech things, or whatever number you want. And then the kid that likes to work by themselves isn't just doing the work by themselves. So thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Choice boards are amazing. And they can be on paper. You can push them out in Google Classroom. I've seen choice boards done a lot of different ways. One of the things, and this kind of goes into, kind of dips the toe into universal design for learning, and also looking at just good lesson design. Sometimes you're going to have kids finish earlier than others, and that's okay. The rule in my classroom was, and especially with my son, if you can do it and do it well in half the time, then you're responsible for the other half of the class period. And if you can't be responsible with that time, then I will give you more work to do. So it's not a punishment for finishing early, but if you can't be responsible with that time in the classroom, either doing something else, expanding on your learning, because as an employee, I would have to do the same thing. If I have to be at work for 8 hours and I finish my day in 4, what else am I going to do with my time? I will find things to do. I will find things either to keep busy. I will start working on the next thing. I will go deep dive and research into something fun. So being able to model and being flexible with that, which is so hard as a teacher, I know for sure. I think that actually leads, go ahead, Amy.
Oh, I was just going to go, just go on the topic of having the choice boards for the children and everything. But, our goal with technology is really to go higher up with that SAMR model. And that redefinition is what we want. And you're just not going to get it if you're not using a technological resource. You're just not, the children are going to be limited. So I would want the students to be able to do certain things. I wouldn't let them do everything, but I would like to think that the rigor in my classroom and the rigor for where technology can take us right now is higher on that SAMR model. So helping them recognize the balance, as you said, I love that app, that you're referring to, and having the children have their own understanding of their own media balance and ways to make better choices, but really to optimize their time and their use of technology and what they're doing with it. And again, as teachers, to really think about what is it that we're having the students do? Is it completion or is it creation?
Yeah.
We know they have to complete assignments, but can you give them the opportunity to create, to design, to redefine their learning, to really think of things like that. So
Yeah. And to showcase what they know or to dive deeper than, what the base standards are. I think one of the things, and I can see it frustrates my son. My daughter wants very specific directions. She wants to stay in a box. My son wants to take what we learned about planets and he wants to learn about black holes, but he
yeah,
can't learn about black holes because they're moving on to the next topic. And giving them space. And one thing, and there is imperfections with every learning graph or setup, right? With Bloom, SAMR, TPAC, there's some that I'm missing. There's always things that are wrong with them, but we're going to just use this as an example. If I'm moving up or across that SAMR model, so substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition, and then I'm going up the Bloom's pyramid as well, I cannot be in redefinition with SAMR without being higher up in the Bloom's taxonomy.
right.
You cannot, it's not possible. Creating a poster where I'm regurgitating vocabulary information is not
Exactly.
creation,
Right.
right? And those things are going to take longer, and that's okay. Those things are also not Googleable answers, which I think is really
Exactly.
big.
Exactly.
So it all kind of ties together. And there's teachers right now that are going, oh, but that hurts, but it takes so much it does. But it also takes your students longer to finish the projects or to finish the unit. And sometimes it takes practice and time. It's not something where you can just flip a switch. As much as we want to, it takes practice and time to be able to do that. We only have a few minutes left, and I really want to talk about the last two because I know that teachers want to know this. I'm going to talk just really briefly about hacking mindset and why I think this is important. I have to do this with my son, and I did this with some of my students, and then removing punitive reactions. And this is something that's huge. And I try so gently, like I just want to hold teachers just very gently in my hand and just whisper to them, like, don't take the technology away. Like we have to find better ways to help them. And they think they kind of go together. So the hacking mindset is comes from my son was 8 years old the first time he hacked our home internet and changed our Wi-Fi passwords and made us think that we were being hacked by an outside person. And he was 8. And my husband and I are both very good with technology. My husband especially is even better than I am on like the super technical side. And we had 2 choices as parents. We could use it as a learning opportunity, or we could punish him. And I mean, I'm sure there's mix in between. And we chose not to freak out about it. And it was hard because that's not how we were raised. Instead, we honored his accomplishment. It wasn't the right thing to do, but he researched, he looked it up, he had to problem solve. He worked on that for days before he figured it out. So the fact that he showed all of these skills, was he working for good or evil? Well, he was working for the dark side on that one. But I want to show him and I want to honor that curiosity in him. And so when students, and this goes really well to the next one, when students make these kinds of mistakes, when they search something that's inappropriate, or when they hack your Google form to find all the answers and share it with students, when they learn somebody's passwords and change things, students are going to do things like this because they are children, because they are curious, and that's excellent. But it's also frustrating for you because then you feel like you have to implement boundaries. And I would love for teachers to be able to look at them as resetting boundaries and resetting expectations and not putting in punishments. And so I would love to hear from both Amy's about examples of how you've done this, or ways that you've struggled with this, because it's something as a mother that I'm really passionate about because I've got that little hacker upstairs. And I know it's something that we're going to be challenged with for the rest of our lives. But also, I hate the way that we punish curiosity when kids do reach out, and it's a little bit beyond the boundaries of where we want them to be. So who wants to go first?
Aim, you're in the classroom, go ahead.
You got those 8th graders.
So I'm kind of modeling it right now because my daughter's playing with the balloons I won from Teacher of the Year, and she's going to place those down so we can do it later together, right, kiddo? No, we're not. Okay, we'll have a chat after. So so the number one thing, and a lot of parent meetings, luckily we've had a couple in person now. Hold on one second. Amy, can you go? I have to
Absolutely. Sure.
mode. Yeah, thank you.
I love that she said, nope.
So she's so good with the kids in school too. I really think that just having a conversation, I've had to do this a couple of times in my role this year with admin, and really just starting with a conversation with the children, and just really asking, what's going on? How did you come about doing this? Why did you do this? Let's talk about this, and get an understanding of where they were, and really reminding them. I know for us, we have given our students, not only, we are one-to-one kindergarten through 12th grade, as well as, the power of their Google account with, their Gmail. And we talk about all the great things that they can do with them. And maybe sometimes, turning it around and giving them a leadership, a way to redeem. I know for us, we are oh my goodness,
Started.
yes, thank you. More restorative, and just, if it's something that is done negatively for a student, maybe something harmful or something unkind with technology, just that restorative component is really important. But also really showing the students some things. When we talk about a digital footprint, this is what we're talking about. Like, let me just show you what I found, and this is what concerns me, and having them, just showing them revision history on a doc and things like this, and just, guys, let's take a look at this. This was up to this point, this was really great. What's going on here? This is, what were you thinking here? And trying to understand, but letting them do the talking and try to facilitate the conversation. And ultimately, in both cases where I've had to meet, has led to an apology and a greater understanding, and, feeling contrite and not repeating, the behavior. And just, I don't know, I just think it's, we're constantly modeling appropriate behavior for our students. And for anybody to say he should know, our job as teachers is to teach them. So
Yeah.
providing
and
all of those. And, sometimes, are there things that are just so inappropriate that maybe there needs to be a greater? Absolutely. But that's where admin can step in. But I think as teachers, what we can control in our classrooms and what we can do at this level, before, if we can do things to handle things with our students before we have to get admin involved, I think that's so important, because it's going to be deepening your relationship with your student. And it's going to tell the student, you can handle these issues, these problems, but you are going to provide modeling. And again, the next day, it's a fresh start. Okay, yes, this was it. There's a fresh start. Here we go.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's a fresh start. We're over, this is it. And that's in the past, but let's move forward. And to show them the next day that it really is a fresh start and they're ready to go, I think that's powerful.
And I think that is something that we can tell ourselves too as teachers. And I know this is so much harder said than done, but if we've messed up, if we realize that our expectations are not in line, if we've done something with a lesson with students and we didn't set good boundaries and they ran all over it, and we've all had that day where our kids they just pummeled us, right? And you walk out of it and you're just emotionally drained, you're exhausted, you're like, well, that sucked. The next day is a fresh day, and you're allowed to come into your classroom and say, the process that we have is not working right now. So we're going to set down some new boundaries, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable at first, but this is what we're going to do, and we can start over. And I know that's so hard, especially in November, especially in February, especially in May, when you're like, I can't reset my classroom management. I can't reset yeah, you can. It's not easy, but you can do it every day, because we are allowing them to retry every day. so we can allow ourselves to retry every day. And we just have to have the patience and perseverance to do so. Amy Bishop?
I just want to add too, so like before, like when I had flip phone and stuff, when I first started teaching, like my phone was away, like no kid ever saw my phone, like it was, like it was locked down. Where now I don't use my phone, but I model what I assume may be like their future work environment. So like I will tell them like, I have my desktop, I have my keyboard, I have my Chromebook, I have my phone face down, I have Baby Yoda, so you can see Baby Yoda. So that way you have all the tools you need, but then you can see I can unplug and have a conversation with you about, the baseball event that's going on or the play that you're inviting me to. And I also tell the parents that like we've had a couple in-person parent conferences lately, which has been great, especially with not seeing anybody for 2 years. The parent will be like, oh, well, I'm just going to take their technology away. And I don't say to the parent, but I would say, imagine if I took your phone away, how you would feel, right? So what I tell the parents is two things. I say, if a kid's on their phone a lot and they're not supposed to be because it's not part of whatever we're doing, I say, do you need me to babysit your phone? Your phone can come sit near mine, which is on my desk, like I just told you. And they're like, no, miss, and they put it away. So usually instead of just give me the phone, because that just creates that me against them kind of mentality. And then in these parent meetings and the virtual ones that I've had, the kids with us. So when I say to mom or dad or auntie or whoever that, maybe you should do what I do. I'm a gamer. Do homework or makeup work for like half an hour, set a timer, right? We're using the technology, then play a video game for half an hour. Do some, go outside and play, do some laundry, hang out with your sibling if you like that, and then set a timer to go back to the technology. Because we all know kids will sit at home for 7 hours straight and be like, oh, it's dark outside, I haven't eaten, and they've been playing Minecraft or whatnot. So having that system in place, which again, most parents I have are younger than me, and they were not given, nor was I, the tools to navigate iPhones and all this technology. And from a side note, on a personal note, my daughter and I, in the pandemic, I realized she was watching way too much TV, and I didn't want to have her addicted to my phone. So what we do in my house is she only watches my phone YouTube in the car. So that's one way that I do my own strategy of doing that. So if we now get to go to Target and she's having a moment, I don't throw my phone at her like I really want to and just give her the YouTube, but I say, okay, it's time to go. We got to go. You're not handling this, which I know for society, we just give the kids the phone. So that's one rule. Now she loves going in the car for obvious reasons now, but when we get home, she knows no more phone for YouTube. We unplug that way. Now she'll still watch Bluey and other things, and we try to limit that, which I'm still working on that. So just having strategies and being willing to try new things, and also us as adults and teachers and parents utilizing Google and finding what works and doesn't, because what worked 10 years ago with a Razr flip phone from Motorola is obviously much different now than the iPhone 11 has more power than what sent a man to the moon in the 60s, so like it's really embracing the change and knowing you're going to fail at times, which is okay, and just setting up that environment for the students.
I love that. And I think a lot of school districts have programs or platforms in place like GoGuardian, Apple Classroom, different things like that, where they can monitor. And those are great. And every school district, because of all of the flows that we talked about last week, also have, filters and stuff placed on the top level of the school systems. But there's nothing that substitutes you being in the mix of your students. You are the best. The first time I used something like Land School, I think it's what it was called. I just remember sitting in the back of the room in the computer lab, like watching my kids, and it almost felt like I was like monitoring like a prison camera. But it was hard for me to get up and walk around because I couldn't see everybody, and it takes time. You may have to reorient your classroom. When kids are all facing the front and you can't see their screens, you may need to go sit in the back of the classroom instead of the front. One of my teacher friends, when he first started using technology, he said it felt weird at first, but the kids, he put all of their desks along the walls. And so when and they were like, well, what do you do when you need to see the screen? The kids would literally flip their chairs around and they would turn around, or they would talk to each other, or they would move their desk. Well, that's messy. It's noisy. Yep, it is. It is. And sometimes you get fun, flexible classrooms and you can do that. And sometimes you just make it work. And even big kids will sit on the floor if they really need to, or sit on the tables or whatever. And you're allowed to change the shape of the room or the orientation of the room. You're allowed to try something different, or change where you sit so you can see their screens, or you can have those conversations, which I think is really helpful. So we're going to wrap up here. If there's any questions from our audience, please pop those into the chat. I want to remind you, again, I love this quote. Amy found this for us. Netiquette is an important part of being a digital citizenship and should be taught to our students from a young age. I think Bishop is a great reminder of that with the kids. The first couple times we gave for my kids, it was Yo Gabba Gabba. We didn't have Bluey back then. And it was like, cool, this is awesome. Like my daughter was like so intrigued. And then all of a sudden, like I couldn't take it away from her. And we couldn't even get in the car or go anywhere without her like watching that thing. So being taught from an early age how to manage all of these things. And if their kids aren't getting it from home, then we can still be great models of that at school. Please, please, please make sure you're checking out Common Sense Media. They are the go-to resource for digital citizenship for a reason. And again, these digital citizenship core intersections are super, super valuable. There's a bunch of take-home resources that we'll make sure we link those in the follow-up email as well. And then we want you to take a moment and think about, what do you want to do next? What kind of changes are you going to make in your classroom? And we would love for you to share those with us. You can respond back to the email. You can add it into the comments below, and just let us know how you might change the way that you set up digital citizenship in your classroom. Finally, we've got a couple of resources, obviously Common Sense Media, but we also have this specifically for our high school folks. We've got some HyperDoc style lessons, 2 lessons per grade, 9, 10, 11, and 12, that can be copied and adapted for your convenience if you want to do something that is like Google, that is digital citizenship centric. And then to show our modeling of good citizenship, we have all of our credits and all of our citations at the end, so you can see where we got all of these things and where they came from, including our slides and our images. Amy and Amy, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'm sorry we went a couple minutes over. Amy, give your daughter a big hug for us and tell her thank you for letting us to use mommy for an hour. I know that is hard to manage both of those at the same time, but I appreciated her and her little no with the balloons.
Thank you.
It's magic. I love it. I love it. She knows what she wants.
And I told her in 5 minutes you can play with the balloons, and she's now playing with the balloons because it's
of course she is.
So
yep, I can hear the Mylar over there.
Setting the boundaries.
Setting the boundaries. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Amy, thank you so much. I appreciate you as well and all of your insight and help in finding the quotes that we shared today. So thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. And thank you so much for being part of the series.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.